نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. We live in a time of very fast technological advancements, and it seems like every few days a new piece of technology is coming out that is surprising, amazing, wonderful, attractive, powerful, and we all use technology to certain extents. And for the remainder of our lives, we will be continuing to use technology. However, just like everything else in life, there are some ground rules, and there are some limits, some principles that we should follow. This pertains to everything. Everything that we use, there are some ground rules, and then there are some limits. Even if you're using a pencil, there are some basic rules of how to use a pencil. And then there are some limits. A pencil can do a certain amount of things. There are certain things that it just cannot do. And then that pencil could be used for benefit, something good and positive, and it could also be used to write or draw something harmful. So the same kind of principles apply to the latest and the most modern technologies, whether it's the various portable devices, handheld devices, phones, tablets, laptops, computers, whatever it is that is out there and giving us access. Today it's all about accessing information and accessing things, accessing data in different and creative ways, and then using that data and applying that data in different ways. Sometimes it's in the form of listening to something, or watching something, or reading something, or it's a practical application that you're using to create something. For example, like a piece of word processing software, or a game of some sort. The same ground rules apply. These things, generally speaking, by themselves, are just a tool. But what we make with that tool and what we use that tool for will decide whether this is something permissible for us or impermissible. Somebody who picks up a pencil with the intention of writing a death threat to someone is using a very simple tool to do something very dangerous and deadly. Similarly, a person who picks up a pencil and starts writing obscenities with it, vulgar language and swear words, they've taken a useful tool and then something disgusting with it. So the devices that we have access to will fall under a similar category. By itself it's just a tool, but what we use it to access and what we use it to do will define whether this is something of good or this is something of evil. And today, in today's world, you are who you click, and you are what you click. In the case of handheld devices, you are what you tap. That defines who and what you really are. So everyone knows that you could access virtually unlimited kinds of content on the internet, but really what is it that you and I are doing? What choices are we making? And sometimes the human being is weak. He or she slips, and they fall into this vicious cycle. Some things are very addictive, and a person is unable to detach themselves from it. And those things that they are viewing are constantly playing over and over in their minds. And this happens with very good and decent people. So what do we do? So the first thing is, obviously, we make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. All of the steps that are involved in tawbah. Resolve never to do it again. but it's also about using those means that will help us get away from that thing. If a person knows that they have this weakness of viewing inappropriate things when they're using their device in privacy, then the step that they need to take, and what is in their power, is to stop using that device in privacy and start using it in a setting where there are people around them. This setting itself, that environment, will serve as a deterrent. It will serve to save them from that. A similar thing is, it applies to every sin. A person should think, what leads me to it? What led me to it? What triggers it in me? So these technologies are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And they will be a part of our lives. And in fact, most of us within our lives will see some even more amazing and powerful tools. But the principles and the limits always apply. The other thing is that sometimes, and this is also one of the principles in Deen, principles in Sharia, that a halal and permissible thing or activity often becomes a bridge for someone to reach the extents of haram. When does that happen? When a person is not engaged in something that's really, truly necessary, and the activity is unnecessary. A person will justify it by saying it's halal. But is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. So a person spends all of this time doing these kinds of activities that it's difficult to say it's haram, but it's not important either. This is what's called la ya'ni or laghu. It's unnecessary, it's irrelevant, but they're spending so much time on it, their iman gets diluted, their iman comes down, and it's very easy for them to step over the boundaries into that which is impermissible. And this is usually what happens. It is rarely that a person who is practicing and pious will jump from being practicing to all of a sudden breaking a major command. There's always this transition period in which the iman is damaged or it's weakened. A person falls lazy, a person becomes less vigilant in their deen, and slowly they slip and they fall into that pit of haram which they find very difficult to climb out of. That's why Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu used to say that تَرَكْنَا تِسْعَةَ أَعْشَارِ الْحَرَامِ تَرَكْنَا تِسْعَةَ أَعْشَارِ الْحَلَالِ مَخَافَةَ أَن نَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. That we left 90% of halal things just because of the apprehension that this might indirectly lead us to something haram. So the believer is not just looking at that act itself. No, this is halal, don't tell me it's haram. What is it leading to? What is it going to build inside? What is it going to create inside? So as Muslims, we are sensitive to these things. So let this be an introduction of sorts to dealing with technologies of any sort. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to use all of these things in a way that pleases Him and brings us closer to Him. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from using these things in a way that displeases Him. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين.